Us. Hello. We have takeoff. Say hello. There's one person with me. That's two. That's like a private lesson. That'll be fun. I hope I learn a lot. Us. Bit quiet today. Let me know if you can hear me okay. Us, Rochelle. Us, O'Sullivan. Us, O'Sullivan. That's how they say us in Ireland, Rochelle. O'Sullivan. O'Sullivan. It's like a cross between saying us and Tourette syndrome. O'Sullivan. Oh, that's so impolite. Us, Daniel, good to see you. Marco, Mike Clark. Us, you're in early today. That's so nice. Hope everyone's well. The lockdown continues. More than half of Australia is in lockdown, and who knows where it's going to go. The cases just get more and more, while some places overseas have tens of thousands of infections. They keep going on so that people don't suffer too much. But in Australia, if you have 4 or 5 infections, they shut the entire state down. So got to live with it. Make your choices. Do your best. But anyway, welcome everyone. Thanks for coming along. Us Todd, good to see you, man. From UF. So Utah's changed its name to UF. Us, good to see you, Todd. Brad, us. Gee, love that. Tigray, how you going? Today I'm going to look just a little at the Sanchin stance and the Sanchin kata, and Mike Clark is here, so he can either verify or correct me. But Kyokushin's style of doing the Sanchin is a little unusual. Not all styles actually do the turn. A lot of the styles, and I believe Goju as well, just stays moving forward and back. Sometimes they do that, but they also practice with the turn as well. I like the turn because of the arm motion, and it's the arm motion that I want to focus on. Us, Prodigal, how are you, man? Thanks for coming. It's that arm motion particularly I want to focus on because it aligns with the concept of connection. Remember the sticky tape. Was Chrissy? And I only thought of the sticky tape when I was moving house, because some of those moving boxes, I thought they'd be okay with 1 or 2 pieces of sticky tape, and by the time they reached the other end, they'd exploded open. Whereas others, I'd put a few pieces of sticky tape, I couldn't get it open to save myself. I had to cut the tape off. So same size box, same weight, same seams, but the only difference was the amount of sticky tape. Well, that's the same with us when we're grappling or when we're dealing with controlling someone in a stand-up situation. The more sticky tape you get on, the easier it is to control. It doesn't mean you have to go looking for sticky tape. If you can knock them out, and if the situation allows that, but if you can knock them out quickly without them even touching you, that's even better. This is one of the arguments against the grapplers who always suggest that 90% of the fights or 100% of the fights end up on the ground. But it's just not true. It may end up on the ground if your objective is to get it on the ground, but from my personal experience, not all fights, in fact, hardly any fights ever end on the ground. In my situation, one night I had to go to work. I was working security at a nightclub in Brisbane for many years, and I couldn't find my work shoes. My work shoes were solid boots with a very solid non-slip sole. I couldn't find them. Turns out I'd left them in the back of a friend's car. But anyway, so I wore the only black shoes that I had, which had leather soles. It was literally like skating along the footpath. And I was working with my good friend and black belt student, Mike Whitten. And this particular night, there were three of us working, and there were 5 or 6 guys and 2 or 3 girls. Of course, the girls caused the trouble, and the boys felt like they had to back them up, as often is the case. So, to cut a long story short, in the melee, I ended up on my back because my feet slipped from under me. And all I did was just move around. I hadn't done any grappling, but instinctively you keep your feet between you and them. And then Mike came and grabbed them and pulled them off me. And they hadn't even got to me, but Mike just grabbed and pulled them off. And I just got back up again. So the only time in my entire history of working doors that I ever went on the ground was that one time when I slipped. And if there's more than you or him, it's just not feasible. They'll grab you or they'll kick you. So the point is, the idea that fights always go to the ground is not real. And if you can finish a fight without contact, all the better. But if you have to control, if you have to tie them up, if you've got CCTVs and you have to demonstrate in a court of law that you acted within the bounds of reasonable force and so on, sometimes you've got to grab. I've grabbed plenty of guys and dragged them out of nightclubs. In that case, the stickier, the better. In other words, the more sticky tape you have. And so this move in Sanchin, where the arm comes across, I want to look at a couple of variations of that. Of course, the shorter forward and back version of the kata was developed by Miyagi Chojun. The turny version came from his... That's very interesting. Higa onna kanyo. I didn't realize that. That's excellent. At Kyokushin for Life, it's good to see Kyokushin for Life still going strong. Yes, indeed. Indeed. Good on you. That's... true indeed. Kyokushin for Life is Todd. He does a great job. Stig, Urs, good to see you. Harry, George, good to see you. I am lucky that a few of the early contributors and moderators are my Kyokushin. Oh, that's so good. Urs, Michelle. Oh, Michelle just reminds me too, as you may be aware, I'm releasing a new app. I've called it the Judo Blueprint 9-week program and app. Yes, Dino, that's a good thing. Never go to the ground, never leave the ground. Us, Gary. And the whole idea of this app is I'm inviting a number of people to be foundation members, and with them I'm going to work on developing what I want and what I aim to make the premium Kyokushin app available in the world that all other apps will be measured from. You know, if it's not successful, that's life. I'm going to do my best. It's the same when I wrote my book. I wanted that book to be a book which Salsai could be proud of. That was my main goal. And the app's going really well. You know, I'm looking for 15 people. There's one very, very high-profile Kyokushin fighter, very high profile. If I said his name, 100% guaranteed, even the non-Kyokushin people would know him. And he contacted me and he said that, see, what I've done is I've worked out what everything's cost, and it's like $9.97 Australian, and I've reduced it to $397 Australian, which is maybe less than 300 US. And this particular person, I won't say his name, not because I'm embarrassed or him, because I haven't got his permission. But he contacted me and said, you need to be charging more. And the figure he mentioned was about $1,200 Australian. And I said to him, well, that's roughly what I've valued it at. But the whole idea of getting the foundation members is that I want to work with these people, help them establish a new level of habits in training, a new approach to technique, and a new attitude towards mindset. Not everyone needs all three. Some people only need one. But anyway, this app is something I'm really, really passionate about. And I'm just so excited because, in fact, someone else who's on the on the chat with us right now, when they joined, they paid double. And I said, you've made a mistake. You've paid too much. And that person said, well, no, I actually think it's worth that much. And then someone else who's on the channel, they wouldn't even have to pay. They know that. But they paid anyway. And not only that, they're paying for someone else to come on board. So really, I'm really, really confident that this is going to go so well. I'm a little bit, I want to get this around so you can see Solsai in the background. There you go, that's a bit better. Us, yeah, new gi. How can you tell, Harry? I had to put a new gi on. The old ones are getting a little bit tatty. Us, Michelle, I'll speak to you soon. Look, I've got a whole range. See, what I'm doing is people, if they're interested, I'm going to send them a fact-finding questionnaire. If they still are interested, and I'm not hiding the fact that it's $3.97. In fact, I'm very proud of it. I really think that that is such good value. It's crazy. Okay, and for that, they get to work weekly on webinars. They get a PDF print of the 9-week plan. They get access to the app for a whole year, and that alone is worth more than $397. So I'm really, really proud of doing this, and it is on the top fighter. Tell me more. Got my invite. Good on you. New gi. Which top fighter? You got me confused, Michelle, but I'm really proud. And so these calls, if you have a call, you don't need the call. The whole idea of the call is that I qualify you, look through your answers, and we decide whether you can work. And if I don't think it's necessary to call, and you just want to go ahead and join, I'll send you an email. But that's something else. But anyway, that's the exciting news. The Budo Blueprint system and app is well and truly on its way. It's very, very exciting. So Sanchin, 3 battles. There's all kinds of possible reasons why it's called that. Shingi Tai. Remember, we did a whole session on the 3s in karate, and many of those are represented in Sanchin. So you might have Shingi Tai. You might have the balance between the stance, the balance between the lower upper body and the core. But also, apparently, it's often said that there's reference to the 3 warring kingdoms of China, sometimes even talk about the 3 kingdoms in Okinawa, which I have no idea about because I've never been to Okinawa. It's on my bucket list, of course. But anyway, more to the point is, Sanchin is such a beautiful, powerful stance. And when I was a little boy, I used to have like dreams, and I remember reading Funakoshi Gichin's book about how he'd stand in Sanchin on the roof and in the wind holding a tatami mat, and I just that was very romantic for me. So I used to do the same thing growing up at Surfers Paradise. I'd go into the ocean, I'd stand in Sanchin, and I'd dig my stance down deep into Sanchin, and as the waves come, I'd fight them. And if I could go a little better, I'd go deeper and fight the waves, and invariably I get bowled over and end up coming up like a wet Sprite. But anyway. Well, Sanchin, one of the reasons I like Sanchin, Harry, is because you don't need the knees. Unless your knees are so bad that you can't walk normally. If you can walk normally, you can do Sanchin. It's the PDF on Patreon. Oh, okay. Of course. Yes. Look, anyone who does want to, I'll add the email now. If anyone does want to find out more about the Budo Blueprint, please send an email and include the phrase work the gap. I like that phrase, work the gap. It's not original. I heard it actually in a business conference, but I applied it. Yeah, pippies everywhere. The surf Sanchin, finding those pippies in the sand. You got it, Chrissy. Work the gap. I use it in terms of working from where I am now to where I want to be. There's a big gap, and I need to work it. You can't just jump it. You need to work step at a time, breath at a time. So that's why I've chosen that phrase, work the gap. So let's have a quick look at Sanchin and one of the some of the reasons why I like it so much. Let me just drop this down a little bit. See my new gi, small. Okay, I'm just going to warm up a little bit. If you want to join in, you're more than welcome. Squatting down. This is a good stretch for your lower back. The more flexible you get, the more you drop your butt so that you're almost vertical. Okay, Sanchin, Kyokushin style. Some styles are a little narrower. I don't mind that. I actually like that. Makes a lot of sense. I do feel as though sometimes a little unstable because it's probably too narrow. They work on the idea of your walking gait. Remember, you've got two hips, the hip joint here. So you don't actually have a single axis in your body. You actually have two axes. I've always believed that, in that you have to balance the axis of the left leg and the right leg to make the central axis good, because, and you know that to be so, and this is why when you practice kicks in many dojos, you'll do it from your feet together, like that. Because that reduces your two axes into a single axis. So if you're an instructor and you teach, it's sometimes good to let the students bring their feet together and practice the kicks from there. In some styles like Shotokan, they actually put their arms out. When I first saw that, I thought it was a bit funky. Then I started to do it, and it makes so much sense, because what it's like is a tightrope walker with a pole, you see. Kyokushin often works the idea of feet together, hands by your side, so you actually narrow your axis so that if you can throw your kicks from here, you can throw them from anywhere. Shotokan in some styles will put their hands out here, and it makes so much sense because now that acts like the pole of the tightrope walker, and it helps you maintain your balance. Okay, so for Sanchin, we're here, we close here, and we close here. Which hand goes under? That right hand goes under if the right foot is moving forward, simply because when the hands come up, now the right hand is in front. And that's really, really important, and it translates into everything. If you could imagine I'm here and I want to get my right arm in, I can't bring it on top because now against pressure, my right arm will get caught. Instead, I bring it here. Now against pressure, my right arm unfolds with a uchi-uke or kake-uke, okay, there like that. So it's the same when we do Sanchin. As the knees come together, the elbows come together. 1, 2. Elbows stay in, hands go wide. The measurements that Sosai taught me was the inside of the elbow is in line with the outside of the body. So you don't want to see air under there. The inside of the elbow is in line with the outside of the body. The inside of the hand is in line with the outside of the shoulder. And the wrist is shoulder height, not the hand. Why? Because if the hands are shoulder height, when I open the hands, they're too low. But when my wrist is shoulder height, when I open the hands, they're at the right height for under the bridge, like that. So that's the main reason for that. 1. Like so. Okay, and everything ties in nicely. Nice strong stance, centered. Sometimes you'll see students will push one leg over too much or one leg over too much. Here's a good secret that I talk about in my instructor's manual. If someone is having a problem with their stance, whether it's Zenkutsu, whether it's Kiba, you can't work out what's the problem. If they're like this, you try to get them. What you do is you get them to stand up straight, straighten their legs, straighten everything, extend their body as much as they can. And that brings the center of gravity, the center of balance, to exactly where it should be. Then you relax and let the stance close in again. That's a good way if you've got a student who's having a little bit of trouble working this out. It also works when they're bending forward too much, because now if they come up, you'll see the bend forward. You get them to straighten and then drop back down again, and that gives you the correct posture. Okay? Now, for Sanchin, in that actual movement, another really important thing, ibuki. These days, I hardly do ibuki as it's normally done. Jorge, Baal Dioseda, Baltodano. Who's Jorge? Thanks, man. I work second ago. I work Seiken Agouchi in Sanchin this morning. Oh, so good. Sanchin kata training is older than Okinawan karate, so I'd be doubtful of any connection to Okinawa. There you go. Very good. I'm glad you said that, because people have a bad habit of changing history to suit themselves. There's one very popular martial art here on the Gold Coast, and it's spreading, and good, all power to. And it was actually created by a mate of mine, and it's pretty solid. It's just fundamentally based on Tong Long. But if you go to his website, I'm not going to badmouth him, although I've had a confrontation with one of his guys and had to, talk to him about that. But he basically was perpetuating the myth that it was a 2,500-year-old martial art from some ancient area of the world. So people have a bad habit of trying to establish authority by changing history. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's just not worth it, eh? So, Prodigal, you're the man. You're always trying to help. Seiken Aguch. Good. So good. Us, guys. Okay, so it's really important that we understand a couple of fundamental things. One, this is the area that you're responsible for. Not over there. That's why you pay taxes. If you pay taxes, the government looks after all this area. So when you're doing things, you don't have to worry about all this stuff. What you're doing is inside your body. That sort of movement, it's here that you're dealing with. Okay, even Moshiyuke. The hands stay together here, all the way up there. There. 1, 2, 3, 4. Not 1, 2, 3 with the elbows out. It's not good. I've got that lovely photo of Solsai and me at Niagara Falls, and I use it as a sample of how not to do. Okay, this is how you don't do Moashiyuke. See, Solsai is relaxed, his arms are down, his waki's closed. And also Solsai had my gi on, mind you. So I'm in a gi that I borrowed off my good buddy Dave Bunt, and he was a lightweight. So that gi is a size too small, so it's really skinny on me. But you can see my front elbow is a little high, a little tense and nervous because I'm having my photo taken with the only photo ever with Solsai at Niagara Falls. But anyway, there's a good example. You can see that the front angle of my arm and the front angle of Solsai's arms are very different. And what that is Solsai simply closing this as opposed to opening that. Okay, now keep that in mind when you do Sanchin. 1, 2. When the hands come out here, the hand comes back, and I used to say it's like rubbing mud off your arm, back, center. Now, in Kyokushin, we go to center. In some styles, they go off the body. That's 100% fine. Last time we did the session on Kyusho, nerve points. So for me, everything, Agouchi, Uraken, everything is aimed at the center line. 1, 2. Step. 1. You hear the arm rubbing back, out. From here, this is really important. This is the main thing I want to look at today. I don't want the hand to open and come under. We start here, we finish here. The problem with learning things from books is the first photo's here, the first photo's there, so you don't realize that it's the transition which captures the power and movement. It's not the position, it's the transition from one position to another that makes all the difference. So I'm here, this hand comes back, it doesn't go out, and even a little bit out, or even there's 1,000 wrong ways to do it. The correct way to do it is hand comes back. Now watch, my hand stays there whilst my body turns. And then just at a certain point, it comes off. I use my hips like that. And my knuckle, my elbow ends up between the first and second knuckles, just about one joint length back. There. And that's really, really important. And then you step across. And that step is really important to develop your rotational balance. So I do it from the back here now. Withdraw. Notice my elbow doesn't come out. My elbow comes back. Across. A step. This hand points. And I undo. And then center line out. Okay, once again, from here, this position, back. Elbow in, not relaxed. Elbow in, across, turn into this position with good balance in your Sanchin. Continue. And then you continue the kata from there, okay? So it's really important that you understand it has to be done inside the line of your body. If you do any technique in one or two exceptions, but they're only exception because you master the fundamental. If you do any technique that goes outside the line of your body, you need to fix it because it's completely wrong. Yeah, Solso was my good buddy until that picture, and after that he never talked to me again. Oh my God. He'd just look at that picture and just go, oh, face slap. Who used to do that? Charlie Brown? Oh, God. Like that. Matus, good to see you, man. Thanks for expressing interest in the app too. Us, I like to rotate at the end of each motion. Good to engage rotation muscles. I'm not sure what you mean. There's rotation. There's correct rotation. If you're doing it that way, that's great. I like to rotate at the end of each motion. Good to engage rotation muscle, tension, being relaxed. If it's done correctly, all those rotations end. Another big mistake that people make when they're doing Sanchin, and I'm not Mike, I don't know about Goju, but I know in Kyokushin, one of the worst things that people do, but it's very hard to fix if you get the habit incorrect from the start, and that is this. I'll do it from the side so you can see. And that's the other thing, you don't want the hand back too much. An arm that's too bent has no power. It has to be strong enough so that you can take that force. From here, one of the things that people do is they go tense, and then a little bit, and then tense, tense. Okay, there's no point in the kata except when you're doing these fast motions and these motions that there's speed. So the tension should be uniform. The hand comes back. the motion remains uniform in speed from start to finish. Now, a word on ibuki. The young, strong, fit, happy, glad, do ibuki to knock yourself out. But I tend to think that as you get older, ibuki is not that good for you. Mike may be able to give me some insight, but I don't know. I've never read anything about it, and I've never read any medical research. It's just an intuitive feeling that heavy-duty ibuki is far too stressful on the heart and blood pressure. So it's really important to reduce that. The tension is good, but it's like a bell curve. Little kids, in the left side of the bell curve, there are certain things they definitely should not be doing. Then you've got that big curve of the 80% in the middle where you just whip the body, knock yourself out, do what you want. But then the other side is, as you get a little older, and I hesitate to class it from 40 or 50 or 60, because when I was still in my early 50s, until I hurt my knee, I was still competing, you know, when we're doing the stair climbs and the hill runs and all this sort of stuff, and still, and we do the fitness in the dojo, and I'd still race to be the one to finish first in my 50s. Yet some people, that's not necessarily possible for them. So it may be in their, well, I don't think 30s, unless you've got a congenital problem, or unless you've got an injury problem. But nevertheless, the point is, you need to keep pushing yourself over time. Don't stop because you're 40, or stop because you're 50, or stop because you're 60. You stop doing certain things when intuitively you know it's not healthy for you. And my feeling about heavy-duty Sanchin is that it's not necessary. Now, here's the way that I like to do Sanchin. In yoga, they have, and I don't know if I have this spelling correct, Ujjayi breathing, the warrior breath. And from what I've seen and understand, it's exactly the same as ibuki, but with the mouth closed. Now, what does that mean? It means when you do ibuki, you open tight, strong, open the throat. Ujjayi is exactly the same, but with the mouth closed. So you can practice, you get the right shape for opening the throat in Ujjayi breathing by doing Sanchin and then softly closing the mouth. So that breath then becomes the correct Ujjayi breathing, opens the throat the same way as ibuki does. And ibuki, like Masayama said, all the breathing from karate comes from yogic breathing. So when I do Sanchin, I'll do Ujjayi breathing simply because it reduces the danger of blood pressure. I don't know that I have I think if anything, I have a low blood pressure condition, because quite often over the years when I've stood up suddenly, I've nearly fainted. Probably, I know everyone does that, but it's a little more common with me, and my daughter has inherited it. So I just like to be very careful with my breathing, and I always try to soften it as much as possible. Yeah, good point. I have low blood. There you go. Low blood pressure and ibuki makes me dizzy. Exactly. The other thing too, though, that you can practice is when you do tension work, it's really valuable to focus your attention at the hara so that the energy doesn't rise up like this, up in the head area. Michelle, you want to try that? So even when you're doing kata, you'll find if you imagine there's this thread pulling you from your belt knot like that, and you let that thread lead you through kata. So instead of going and you get this little wobble and power, and the tension lifts up here, which is a very Western thing. Instead, you focus in the hatha. And what you get is the steadiness, the rock-solid steadiness that is, very common amongst good karate people. And that is, so if you're ever in class, Michelle, and you have to do ibuki or anything, just concentrate a little bit down. Concentrate, even if the air leaves your belly, Michelle, concentrate your focus, your attention at the belly. Focusing on the hatha doesn't necessarily mean tensing the hatha. It just means a consciousness at the hatha. When we get together, I'll work with you a bit on that. You might find it really interesting. It could have an effect. But if you've got low blood pressure, it sounds like it's kind of similar to me. And so I always have to be a little more careful than average there. I wonder if the intensity of ibuki is determined by the shape you're in at a particular age. My ibuki is less stressful to me than some 50 plus people less fit. Yeah, you're pretty fit for an 80-year-old, Rob. You got to remember that. You line up in a police lineup of bad old men with horrible intentions, and if they're all 80, you're the one that looks like you're 65. So don't forget that too. Just, at 80, it's not that you're doing the workout of a 20-year-old tournament fighter. The very fact that you do what you do every day makes the big difference. Jake, focus on the bicep. Start uchi uke, focus on the bicep. Uchi uke, focus on the rotation muscles. Also against. Yep. Don't overthink it either, Caius. Just be careful there too. I would, if I withdraw my hand, even though the bicep is bending the arm, it's only one of the muscles that withdraws the hand. I would be more inclined to close the waki, the focus on the waki. Other than that, that's the main thing with withdrawing the hand like that. And that holds true for all ranges, especially when you're grappling on the ground and so on. That focus on closing the waki is really, really vital. This exercise may help. Okay, this is for you, Michelle, I'm sure. Breathe in through the nose, lips closed. Yes. Exhale through open mouth. To find a feeling, I'm sure that's what you meant, feeling. Swallow it. By swallowing it, I'm only assuming, I shouldn't be assuming, but, I've never done what Mike's talking about, but by swallowing it, what it does is it consciously brings your breath to the hatha. And that's what you need, I think, Michelle. So I'm glad Mike said that, because to me, if you're getting that dizziness in ibuki, it just means that it's still, it's like if you did singing lessons, you'd probably find the singing coach would say to you, it's a little bit too high in the head. You're still singing in the head. Try to bring it down lower. In Goju is the stance, in the stance, the knees are more together, and you work the hara, yeah. Yeah, look, there's variations, but someone said to me the other day, look, what's the difference between Kyokushin and other styles of karate? And I said, well, not much. At the end of the day, there are more similarities than differences. And you remember that sentence, there's more similarities than differences, because, and Rochelle pointed this out, and it's something we've always said, the human body is one, and it can only punch and kick in so many ways. The choke that works on me will work on someone else if it's done the same way. So it's not like there are huge variations in the way different techniques are done. Definitely not the case. The human body is one. You can only punch and kick in a very narrow range of ways. So Harry's pointing out that in Goju the knees are closer together, which I'm sure they are. And, sometimes Kyokushinma get too wide. All right? There's that too. So if you've got any questions, now's a great time because Mike Clark is here, and those who know Mike Clark and his wonderful books, which I love. See if I've got a link here to any of them. There's a link right there. See if I got that. No. There's a good link to one of Mike's books. So, Mike's, I believe he's an 8th Dan in Goju. Could be right. Is that correct, Mike? Are you 7th Dan or 8th Dan? And if you tell me you're 9th Dan, you're fired. I think it's 7th Dan or 8th Dan, and if you don't answer me, it just means you've been humble, I understand. But anyway, Mike Clark is there. He's a very high-ranking Okinawan Goju, so he knows more about Goju than me, that's for sure. Sanchin has very important applications. Every kata has applications. Not every technique in every kata has applications. I think people can overthink it and try to milk something out of something that isn't there. Quite often, if you think about, you're a dapper Dan man. If you, I often think about, you look at the Olympic gymnastics, like the floor exercises in the gymnastics, or even the bar or the balance beam, they all have required elements. One element might be a certain type of pirouette, a backflip, a double, this sort of thing. But the actual performance is a series of techniques that connect those required, necessary, compulsory elements. And what makes the beauty of it is each athlete's individual expression between those necessary elements, because the elements themselves don't change. It's the artistic expression in between that does. Well, it's the same in many respects with kata. There are certain fundamentals. Bring the elbows in. Don't lift the elbows. Relax your shoulders. Close the waki. Transition. But it doesn't mean that every single move in the kata has any realistic, practical bunkai. So that's one thing that's worth thinking about too, Kaius, is if you ever come up with a good application, the first thing you do is you test it against an increasingly higher and higher level of non-compliance to the point where you want that guy to come at you with anything, and you test the technique. You can never, to develop skill, you need compliance with a partner. And you can say to them, just hit me with a right hand. And then, okay, so they start off. And then they get a bit quicker. The next thing you know, they're throwing it. And the next thing you know, they're throwing it like they really mean business. And so you test the realistic, applicable qualities of that application by using an increasing level of non-compliance. That's pretty important, I think. So in Sanchin, there's some great applications. This application here is really beautiful. That one there, boom, when you're holding. Remember, whenever the old Okinawan masters used to say, particularly Itosu Anko, he said, in the kata, when you touch your own body, you're actually touching your opponent's body. So this move is very strong. The double breakout, that can be very good with the double kake uke, morote kake uke, as in garyu kata. That's really good when you're grappling with someone and they go to grab you, you pull in, drag like that. That's very good too. Dapper Dan, you still didn't answer the question, Mike, so I'm going to go with 8th Dan. I'm going to tell everyone you're an 8th Dan. And if you don't disagree, you can't complain. So anyway, folks, I hope you got something out of that about Sanchin and Sanchin's stance. Very, very important. One other final thing, my apologies. In Sanchin, at the end of the kata, when the hands go out, you take them out 3/4, roll, and then withdraw. When you pull here, if you want to headbutt someone, the worst thing in the world you can do is grab their head and headbutt them, because then it's the one with the thickest helmet that wins. But if you want to headbutt someone, the fundamental, simple approach is a line across their nose. Actually, the line across here, if you like. You headbutt with that part against this part. You never want to headbutt this part with that part. It's the thicker head wins. You draw the line here. So whenever you're headbutting, you come in and then you're driving up this way. You're driving there. But if you grab their head and pull it in, you just pull their head down. So that's why in Sanchin, when you do this technique, you pull from here. Because when you pull hard, you get this shock where the head goes up, and then you end up headbutting the lower part. So the hand goes out. And that's why in the kata, in Kyokushin anyway, the retraction is done quickly, because you have to get that head jerk so that when you headbutt them, the lower half of their head is up so that you can get it with the top part of your head, like that. Oh. So you go out and then 3/4, then you turn, continue, close the waki. Okay, so yes, you do have some good practical applications in that kata, Caius, by all means, you're right there. Okay, what kata did that gentleman who wrote Be Your Own Bodyguard use when facing multiple opponents? That gentleman is Nick Hughes, and his book, How to Be Your Own Bodyguard, How to Be Your Own Bodyguard. That's a book that I recommend to everyone. I think everyone should use it. If you're an instructor in the martial arts, your students deserve that you. I'm just looking for that book. See if I've got I don't have it. But the kata that he generally used, Marco, was probably used more than one kata, because people who say, "Oh, that kata doesn't work," Nick Hughes would bet London to a brick that you're wrong, because he has tested it under pressure against a non-compliant opponent, or in most cases against numerous non-compliant opponents. He tells a funny story where he was trying to use a certain technique out of Naihanshin, where he was on the side so he could step across, and he was trying to use that in a street fight, but every time he'd get to the position, the guy he was fighting would change angles, so he'd have to change again, and he just wanted someone to stay on his side so he could practice that technique. It took all night apparently, but finally apparently it happened. But so the main, and I'd have to check with Nick, but I'm fairly confident that when he told me about it, that it was primarily using Naihanshin, moving across, but add kicks to it as well. So in Naihanshin, whereas you may, for example, start here, he would step across here, instead of just going here, he would step across and do a kick. Bang, boom, he'd come back again. He would step across, do kicks like that. So he was doing Naihanshin this Nai Hunchin, the first one, he was doing that, but he was ad-libbing, depending on where the guys are around. And for those who aren't up to scratch with the story we're telling, all in all, he got jumped by 22 skinheads, most with weapons of some sort, and he maimed 5, broke limbs and pelvises and things. He knocked out another 8, and 9 ran away, although I think he knocked one out before earlier on, so 8 ran away. It's all on CCTV, and it was all witnessed by a police officer, so he would never have told the story because no one would believe it. 1 man against 22 armed skinheads in London at Camden Station. So he would never have told the story, except that it was caught on CCTV and there was a police witness, and he even gave the police witness's name and badge number and stations for anyone who wanted to check up. But the police couldn't enter the affray, because their law only allows police officers to enter 2 at a time. 1 can't go in, it's too overwhelming. And the amazing thing was, when they arrested the 13, so 8 out cold, another 5 maimed with broken limbs, they didn't know what to charge these 13 with, because they hadn't touched Nick. He didn't have a scratch or a mark, other than 1 guy knocked out. He dropped, this guy had like a big piece of wood, and that piece of wood just went down straight past Nick and gave him a little, red mark on his leg. But other than that, they didn't touch him. And so they didn't know at first what to charge them with. So amazing story. If you want to infatuate over whether your techniques work, remember the first thing you do is speak to Nick Hughes. Got you there. The first thing you need to do is, it's one thing to do it with a training partner that's there to help you. The next step you take is, I'm not suggesting you do this, but you walk out, find someone, big, mean, ugly, strong, and you swear at them and wait for them to come, and then test your bunkai. And that'll tell you very quickly whether what you're doing works or not. Otherwise, if you want to do it in a more safe environment, then you find a dojo where guys are pretty strong, and you say to them, come at me with anything you want. And then you can test your bunkai that way. So that's, other than that, bunkai is very highly underdone by people. But thank you anyway, guys. Appreciate your time. Extend it a little bit there. Remember, if you're very, very interested in the Budo Blueprint app, by all means, send me an email to budoblueprint@gmail.com. As a poor little teenager, all I remember is you trying to knock me out. Yeah, that's because you were trying to knock me out. And your kicks were quicker than mine. Thank you, guys. Mike, 8th Dan, Mike, I appreciate your input. Okay. Everybody, thank you. Kyokushin, also good on you, Toddy. And I saw Paddy Pinto turn up there. I didn't get a chance to say good day, Paddy, but I appreciate everything you do. Thanks, everyone. Prodigal. Yes, you can purchase a physical copy of the book. It's in ebook as well as physical copy. Just go online and look up Nick Hughes, How to Be Your Own Bodyguard. Us, Tigray, thank you very much. Dino, us, look forward to seeing you next week. Don't forget, the Budo Blueprint app closes down tomorrow, 100%. If you haven't expressed interest, you're not, I'm sorry, you missed the boat. Also, Alec, I answered you back. I hope you got that email. And Patty, good to see you. Thanks, everyone. See you next week.